The Fed is holding the line. Trump wants cuts. But what happens when the central bank's mission and the president's agenda collide? Today, we're breaking down the growing tension between Fed Chair Jerome Powell and President Trump, and why this battle could shape the future of the U.S. economy. It's not just a policy disagreement. It's a clash between economic strategy and political survival. And if the Fed gets it wrong, the cost could be a recession or runaway inflation. The Federal Reserve's mission is clear: maximize employment and keep prices stable. But right now, Powell is between a rock and a hard place. Trump's tariffs are putting both of those goals in conflict. Here's how. Tariffs raise the cost of imported goods, meaning businesses pay more, consumers pay more, and inflation rises. At the same time, those higher costs are leading to job cuts and hiring freezes, especially in manufacturing and retail. Powell summed it up like this: we may find ourselves in the challenging scenario in which our dual mandate goals are in tension. Translation: the Fed can't fix inflation without risking jobs, and vice versa. This is the exact opposite of a normal economic cycle, where inflation and unemployment usually move in opposite directions, and it puts the Fed in the position of having to choose which half of its mandate to prioritize. So why not just cut rates like Trump wants? Because the Fed is stuck in data limbo. Yes, Q1 GDP contracted, but April jobs came in strong. Inflation is above target, but not spiraling, and no one really knows how deep the tariff damage will go. That's why Powell is keeping rates steady at 4.25 to 4.5% for the third straight meeting. He said there's no real cost to waiting, as long as inflation expectations stay anchored, and he's made it clear. Here's where it gets political. President Trump is pressuring the Fed hard, calling for immediate cuts to offset the drag from his own tariffs. But Powell isn't budging. The Fed's credibility depends on staying independent. If markets think the Fed is just doing Trump's bidding, inflation could take off, and the Fed would lose control over economic expectations. This isn't just about rates. It's about trust. And in Powell's view, cutting now to please the White House would be a bigger risk than doing nothing. A politically compromised Fed risks becoming a short-term tool rather than a long-term stabilizer. That could permanently damage its ability to guide the economy in future crises. So what's at stake? For consumers, higher prices on everyday goods, and possibly rising unemployment. For businesses, uncertainty over supply chains, costs, and hiring. For markets, volatility, as traders try to read Powell's next move in a politically charged environment. And for the Fed, a credibility test with global consequences. If tariffs persist, the U.S. risks sliding towards stagflation, that toxic mix of rising prices and rising unemployment. It's the one scenario the Fed fears most. The longer this pressure builds, the more likely the Fed will be forced to pick a side, contain inflation or rescue jobs. Either choice could reshape the economy and the 2026 election more than any political policy ever could. So who's really steering the U.S. economy, Powell or Trump? That question could define the rest of 2025. Make sure to drop your thoughts below and subscribe to State of the Street for weekly deep dives on money, power, and politics.